It feels like there has been possibly quite a big escalation, actually, since we spoke last 10 days ago.
Yep.
Where are we now?
I think escalation is the right word, and we had put Middle East escalation risk at the top of our sort of watch list compass because it seems quite clear, at least as I read the signals, that Washington has been able to put some amount of pressure on Israel. Some use the term slow walk, but to, kind of talk big about a retaliation for the October 7th terrorist attacks by Hamas. And we see a lot of efforts around limited incursions, limited strikes, and everything else. But what I think is really powerful about the recent events is what's happening from Washington, attacking those positions in Syria and sending that message to the leadership of Iran that it's not going to allow these strikes on U.S. forces.
Tina, and I understand this is delicate, but if there's not a ceasefire from the U.S., is there going to be a backlash worldwide against Israel and actually the U.S. support of some of these strikes on Gaza?
And this is what is really horrendous about the calculus of war, because from a military strategy perspective, a ceasefire is an opportunity to rearm. And there's a very deep academic literature about how ceasefires prolong conflicts and cost more lives over time. Now, as humans, when we see these devastating scenes of deprivation, of death, and issues of lack of water and everything else, how can anybody say that there shouldn't be a ceasefire? Or this is why European leaders use the term humanitarian pause, because they understand that a ceasefire suggests let the adversaries, re-equip and rearm. This is an incredibly difficult situation for leaders to balance because the scenes and the human toll is enormous.
But I guess if they don't balance, is this, and I don't know if it's echo chambers in social media, but if because of the death and destruction and frankly killings, if this is not balanced, is it going to be harder to do geopolitics? Is it going to be harder to just go into foreign affairs, basically?
The ricochet effects are many, and one of the things that I've flagged is this, the strong actions to defend Israel probably hurt Biden with the American left at the polls because of the extent of polarization. And it is incredibly difficult to find some kind of humanitarian third way in this environment where there are so many interlinkages and where, of course, sending signals to Russia and China and Iran, all of which are involved in both the Ukraine and the Middle East conflicts, is really paramount.
Tina, so we had these U.S. military attacks on 2 Syrian facilities, which they say were linked to Iran. Like, what's the best policy for U.S. foreign affairs right now? Do they need to go hard to show that Iran can't be playing games, or is there another way to basically de-escalate this?
I think this is out of the playbook that Biden has to use. I remember talking to Madeleine Albright about this, the late Madeleine Albright, in the past, and she said leaders have 3 tools at their disposal. There are only 3: diplomacy, sanctions, and conflict. What we are seeing is Iran, through its proxies, using these sort of gray zone attacks designed to inflict damage without prompting a full-scale military response. And the U.S. is showing that it's serious. It won't allow it. And where I would highlight, I think there's a disconnect in thinking of market participants, is that the old kind of, response is to say, well, the U.S. won't do anything in the run-up to elections that will drive up oil prices. And I think that old calculus is really wrong in this case. The U.S. has almost no choice but to stand up to attacks on its own forces. Plus, we've seen the move of 2 U.S. strike carriers. That they are serious.
I've just come back from Saudi Arabia, and actually in the corridors of the FII, a lot of the talk was on those 2 carriers. The fact that if somebody were to play games or something were to happen, even a small boat put in one of those, then we're in trouble.
And we have seen that happen in the past. It was 15 years ago that there were attacks on U.S. forces and battleships in the Gulf. Markets have short memories. Business leaders see big opportunity at the Gulf. It is notable that there were virtually no cancellations to the so-called Davos in the desert. I think that there has been an effort to really try to localize the military conflict between Israel and Hamas, and assume that it won't widen. But that relies on a lot of restraint from a lot of actors for whom this is an opportunity to gain advantage.
What's Putin's role in all of this?
Sit back and watch.
Because it plays his advantage.
That's right, because it is distracting attention from the war in Ukraine. He is hoping for a change of government in the White House in 2024. That's only a year away if you are a leader who's been in office for over 20 years, as Putin has. And he feels time plays to his advantage because conflict in the Middle East increases the likelihood of war fatigue. Another twist since we last spoke, of course, is we now have a leader in the U.S. House of Representatives. The White House Congress will try to put through separate aid packages for the Middle East and Ukraine. I actually think those chances are better now, of passage better now than they were before.
And Tina, last time you were on, so 10 days ago, we were talking about how it's quite unusual that the U.S. was also leaking their outreach to China to deal with the conflict in the Middle East. Where's China on this?
I think China is a bit deer in the headlights, having, pushed for a strategic role and, reaped the benefits of that with the Saudi normalization with Iran. China also now having to deal with its own internal considerations. The story going around is whether China's taking a great leap backward instead of the old Maoist forward. So I don't think we should expect much in the way of statecraft on this conflict from China. They've been very limited in their remarks.